always on the go, but the day just won't be one without your Hollywood fix. Let Golden State Media Concepts Entertainment Podcast take care of that. Jordan and Keith is Entertainment Tonight meets Access Hollywood.
I'm Jordan. The guy laughing, that's Keith.
Yeah, I'm Keith.
An all-inclusive look of pop culture.
Are you feeling tired, bloated? Does nobody love you? Ask your doctor about the Golden State Media Concepts Entertainment Podcast.
Oh, yeah.
With Keith.
Yes, I'm Keith.
And yes, you Jordan. Are. And me, with Jordan. Welcome, guys. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing, man?
I'm doing okay. You know, I think today is slightly more special than yesterday.
Today is slightly more special?
Yeah.
Okay. Why? Because we're here?
Because we're here and we're going to have a lot of fun in the next
All right. Okay.
5 to 10 minutes.
Oh, I hear you.
All right. So you want to start off with the first headline?
Yes. So, welcome to Entertainment News. Excited dance contestant vomits on Paula Abdul. Wow. So, this contestant, this young girl, she came out on the show. I believe her name is Tahani Anderson, and she performed these great dance moves on the stage on the television show.
It was
So
really
You Can
good.
Dance. Did her thing. All 3 judges stood up and clapped, gave her a standing ovation. They loved her performance. They gave her a high ranking, a high marking, and so she came over to them, and they started hugging her individually. And when she got to Paula, and after Paula hugged her, well, she was holding her mouth like she's about to throw up, and then she threw up, and some of it got on Paula. And Paula was like, "Are you okay?" She's like, "Yeah, I'm fine." And Paula was like, "Well, I never had anyone vomit on me before." So, and then she ran out, to the lobby with her, her ticket saying that, she's, going to the next round and stuff. And
idea of humanizing, or the idea of a soul. And they're considered abominations in Orphan Black because they were not made in God's way. Now, I don't want to get on a religious whole thing of this. I'm not trying to bring any part of religion into this whole thing, but it has to come back to that. Even if you're not going to use the Bible example of what God is or anything else, it has to come down to something deeper than just the flesh and blood. It has to come down to being something deeper than the blood type or the genome. It has to go further and beyond the bare science of what it is. It is the fact that it can walk and talk, that it can make decisions, that it can create and destroy. One of the laws of thermodynamics, and I think it may be the first, is that matter is neither created nor destroyed. It is merely changed. And if you believe in a God that created all things, and if you believe in Genesis, that man came from the dirt, made from dirt, which is really sort of a metaphor for men being of earth, for being natural, or if you believe in evolution, if you believe that, the single-celled organism that mutated into the multi-cell, that mutated, and eventually this kind of life just crawled out from the primordial soup, and evolution occurred over thousands and thousands, if not millions of years, and eventually here mankind is, that is natural, that is of this earth. And since we cannot create nor destroy matter, is the life that we create not natural? For we are merely transforming other matter that is of earth
Thanks for tuning in to the Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast, the podcast that covers everything fantasy football, from standard scoring leagues to daily fantasy leagues. We got you covered. I'm your host, Tate, and today I got my good buddy with me, Owen Sullivan. How you doing there, Owen?
I'm doing well, Tate. How about yourself?
I'm doing good, other than, it's been really warm in California up here.
Yeah, it is a hot summer so far.
That's an understatement, and we've been having little problems in the studio lately with the AC, so it's a little warm in here, everyone.
Good for you.
All right, so last week we were covering quarterbacks, and we got through the top 10, and today we're going to be covering 11 through 20. So we're going to kind of recap who our top quarterbacks were. We're going to go through 1 through 10 and let you know what who we picked for the top 10. And then we're going to continue on from 11 through 20 when we come right back. Please hold, and we'll be right with you.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Okay, we're back, and this is Tate with Owen Sullivan today, and we're going to be covering our quarterbacks. Last week we covered our from number 1 to number 10, and our number 1 quarterback was Aaron Rodgers, and we both kind of agreed on Aaron Rodgers. And then, do you want to go through who are the rest of the listeners are?
Right. The first 4, as we talked about last week, are basically so close. You can interchange any one of them. But the second one is Cam Newton. Third one is Russell Wilson. Fourth, Carson Palmer. Fifth, Tom Brady. Brady could also be up there, mixed up with those. Sixth, Andrew Luck. But then followed by Ben Roethlisberger. Number 8, Eli Manning. Number 9, Drew Brees. And number 10, Tony Romo.
Now, with it being a week already has passed since we started this, do you have any second thoughts on our top 10?
No, I think, again, we, so like we said last week, we were talking about the first 5 are so light years ahead of everybody else that if you had those picks in your draft, you have a chance for one of those 5. I would pick those in the first round. Anything after that, the next 5 could go in the third, fourth round, whatever you are comfortable picking up a quarterback.
Yeah, because now here's the thing, there's a couple of different schools of thought, and this is a prime example where Owen, who's been very successful in fantasy, and no one can doubt that. When he looks at the first 5 picks or one of the top picks in the draft, he always likes to go quarterback first. So where I'm a little different, where getting a top quarterback is a priority, but I don't try to touch a quarterback until at least the 3rd or 4th round. It's just a different approach. Doesn't mean one is better than the other one. It's just a philosophy. And so but I do agree with him on the top 5. We definitely agreed on that. The only caveat is, if for some reason, now let me ask you this about your top 5. Let's say the same thing happened that happened last year, where the courts come in and lift that suspension from Tom Brady. Does that change your top 5?
I would put Brady ahead of Wilson. That would be the only thought. How about you?
I would move Tom Brady to number 1.
I can't. I wouldn't disagree with you.
Yeah, that's the only thing that I would shift my top 10 is that if Brady doesn't have the suspension, Brady proved last year with Gronk and everyone else that he's a force, and I would definitely move him ahead of Aaron Rodgers and Cam Newton for that matter. So I was just kind of curious about that with you.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. Any one of those 5, put a slip in a hat and pick it, and you'd still be okay.
Yeah, you're doing pretty darn good. If you pull off one of these 5, you're more than likely you're set to, unless you have a horrible draft, you're set to contend for the playoffs.
And the funny thing, like you're talking about Brady, it's not like he's got wide receivers like Roethlisberger does. I mean, Edelman and Amendola, they're good possession receivers, but you're not gonna go deep on them every time.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I kind of like Brady makes his wide receivers look a whole lot better than what they really are, and Belichick as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and dive in, and we've already covered our top 10, and now we're going to hit our number 11th quarterback from the San Diego Chargers, which is Phillip Rivers. Now, what's your thoughts on Phillip so far?
Rivers has always been just a steady, strong quarterback. He's I kind of put him up there. He's below Eli Manning in ability, but he always does seem to put up numbers no matter what. Although the last few years, because of his receivers have been a little bit decimated, Gates hasn't been the player that he once was, which was basically his safety valve. He's fallen off a little bit, so I'm not as bullish about him as the others in the top 10. But I still think he is a decent quarterback and will put numbers up for you.
Now, with me, my take on Phillip Rivers is this. When Phillip Rivers is on, Phillip Rivers is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. He puts up amazing numbers, huge stats, and he can single-handedly win a game for you. But Phillip Rivers can also lose a game for you. When he has his lows, they can be low. And that's one of the reason why I get a little nervous with him because, he's that guy can go off for 20, 30 points, or he's that guy that can go for 10, 15 points. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. I think it's, you never know what you'll get with him. Most of the time you're going to get, 20, 25 points most of the time. But then every so often he's going to throw that stinker in there, and it's just going to kick your butt, and you're going to go, why do I have him on my team?
And you do not want that stinker when you're going down the line and it's win and you're in, or lose and you're out of the playoffs, and he comes in with one of those stinker games. It'll make you regret having him for forever.
I don't think if you were playing Rivers that you're going to be in the championship game. I mean, I might be stretching it a bit, but that might be, I would venture to say that's probably not going to take you to the championship.
Maybe you've done really well with drafting wide receivers and quarterbacks at that point.
You had to have.
All right, so let's move on to number 12, which is, is this guy fool's gold? Or is he just that guy that is just the right guy for your roster? And that's Kirk Cousins from the Washington Redskins.
Kirk Cousins is, again, one of those quarterbacks that you know, some days he puts up huge numbers, and other days he throws 5 interceptions. I think he doesn't. I'm not as excited about him because I'm not as excited about his receivers. I mean, I know you always liked Deshaun Jackson. For one thing, he went to Cal, but and for another team, for another thing, he seems to quit or doesn't play when he when he has a bad day. But with him, and then you got Pierre Garçon, who's decent, but he's just at the end of his career. I don't know that Cousins can make them better. What do you think?
Now, you know what? I'm going to agree with you, but before I even give my answer to that one, I want to give the audience just a little backstory on the Deshaun Jackson story. Okay, so Owen's a very solid fantasy football player, and one year he was one of the best teams in the league. He was on a roll, and Deshaun Jackson, it was like game after game would just let him down. Then he bench him, Deshaun Jackson would go off. Then he start him, Deshaun Jackson would flat out just be a dud. After a while, by the end of the season, he was so done with Deshaun Jackson. It's been years. He still does not want Deshaun Jackson on his team.
I don't. He's a chump. I don't like him.
All right. So with that being said, my thoughts on Kirk Cousins is this. I think he's like
the whole concept of like, oh, they just happen to have this and happen to, yeah, okay. You have to be willing when somebody brings in something that's new and they say, we need to weaponize this, that the company's just going to have some way to do it right there. We can't spend 5 minutes on a montage of them building a machine, ultimately just to do one thing. And then, it's a waste of time. So you do have to follow this to a great extent, being something that's going to just fill in the gaps. Fine, move the story forward. And they did it so well this time. The action was fun, the drama was there, and the characters, my God, Duke, the characters. So go see TMNT, Out of the Shadows. If you were a fan of the cartoon that was out when I was a kid, or the new ones that are out that my daughter gets to enjoy, see this flick. It's very fun, very exciting. All right, we got a lot more coming up here on the show. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Sci-Fi Podcast. We will be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
All right, we are back. Thanks for joining us on the Golden State Media Concepts Sci-Fi Podcast. This one also very personal for me. Okay, of course, the first one, Talking Turtles, of course, very close to my heart. This one is close to my heart, not because of when I was a child, but because of my child. Okay, I have two girls. One's a wee baby, not even a year old. My other girl, my oldest, she is turning 7 this year, okay? When she was very young, having a guy like me, her father, and the stuff that I was into, always trying to influence her. By the time that she was really talking and putting sentences together, she could tell you the secret identity of Peter Parker, and she could tell you who Bruce Wayne was, and she could tell you who Tony Stark was, and she likes superheroes. And she likes guy superheroes. And she came to like girl superheroes. And the older she got, the more her styles were melding. She would wear a Captain America t-shirt and a pink tutu. She was into the Disney princesses as well as, wearing a tiara and Hulk gloves. She straddled that line because there was no line to her. Then the more she started interacting with other girls and the type of background that they come from, things started to get defined as what is for girls and what is for boys. And I get it's not fair to say just girls. When she's starting out with other boys too, obviously those lines there's separations that are put in there. And all of a sudden, the things that she liked were considered boy things. And the other stuff that she liked were considered girl things. And that distressed me. So I let her have her Disney princesses, and she still enjoys superheroes. I'm glad she does. So a couple of years ago, Disney bought Lucasfilm. Disney then now owned Indiana Jones, a couple of other small properties, but largely it came to be they owned Star Wars, one of the biggest franchises, if not the biggest film franchise in the history of film. I don't even think that can be argued monetarily or just impact socially. So they immediately got J.J. Abrams, who had just relaunched Star Trek, to come in and make this Star Wars film. And everyone was excited. Everyone was excited. Finally, there's no prequels. It's back to the story after the existence of Luke Skywalker and the destruction of the Death Star. It takes place afterwards. Compounded the excitement with the return of Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill. They were bringing him back. And then when the trailer first came out, I must have watched that thing 100 times. It was blowing up. So the day comes where it's released. Or let's backtrack a little bit. Before the film was released, I was with my daughter and we watched episodes 4, 5, and 6. I didn't really find it important to watch the prequels. We watched 4, 5, and 6, and I tried to get her on board. But I understand, there's a bit of nuance when it comes to episode 5. I know when I was a kid, Empire Strikes Back was not my favorite. It was kind of slow, a little dark. So I knew she wasn't going to be all enthralled. But I thought, once it comes around to watch Jedi, she'll love it because of the Ewoks and all this other stuff. So she had, a little bit of interest. But we went to go see episode 7. We went to go see The Force Awakens. And as I'm watching the film, because they didn't really give this away in the previews, we come to find that this story, or this new trilogy, as far as the Force Awakening and who it affects, is related to Rey, the girl. And she's the Force-sensitive one. Now, if you go back and you watch the trailers and you watch the previews, only Finn is shown wielding that lightsaber. You never see Rey with it. So I had only to assume when this whole thing kicked off, okay, there's a stormtrooper that's Force sensitive, and that ended up not being the case. But I had no problem with that. This is not like recasting parts that already existed and replacing them of a person with a different gender or ethnicity or anything else. This was backed by a legacy that we can follow this girl to ultimately her saga and her story of finding Luke and learning to use the Force. And my daughter loved it. She loved Rey. This was a lead who was compassionate, who was strong, who was intelligent, who was tough, who had the Force, but that wasn't the coolest thing. The coolest thing is she's the new captain of the Millennium Falcon. That's the coolest thing about her. So her love of this character made me excited. I'm glad that she liked Star Wars in some vein, okay? Maybe she wasn't as interested in Luke Skywalker as I was, or Han Solo as I was. But she found a character in this new franchise that she could enjoy, and it was the lead. This is her story. So, trying to capitalize on that new love, I'm like, okay, Disney has never been one to fall short on merchandise. Certainly, this is Star Wars, one of the most brand recognizable things out there. There's Star Wars on anything you can possibly find. This character is going to blow up. This character is going to be huge. No. The amount of product available for Rey, the character, is dismally lacking. There's no doll. Any action figure you try to find of this character comes coupled with either BB-8 or Finn. You have to buy them as a twofer. You're not finding these in the girls' toy section. You're barely finding anything in the boys' toy section. This is the lead. This is the lead of this new series. This is her story. I can find tons of crap of Boba Fett. I can find tons of Finn stuff, tons of Poe Dameron, which I found out in the special features wasn't even supposed to live through the first movie. That's all available. Kylo Ren, yeah, go nuts. You can find it. You can find a plush toy, makes them look cute. But Rey, the lead, this awesome example of independence and intelligence and strength. wasn't princess-like, came from nothing, lived in the desert. Nope, hardly nothing. There's maybe 3 T-shirts designed that are awful. The toys are lacking. No other product to support this character. And there's a market for it here. And what's the reasoning? What is the reasoning for this? Because I got to tell you something. Not only is this new series about this girl, but the very next Star Wars film that comes out, Rogue One, also a female lead. Disney buys this. They kick off this new saga with 2 films, 2 female leads. And where's the love? Where's the love for her? Why can't I find anything to get for my girl? There's a market for it. It exists. Are they afraid that we're going to lose interest in this? That they're going to be more popular than the Disney princesses? Well, I say good. I'm happy with that. We're finally getting an audience that can say definitively, this is not a supporting character. This girl is the lead. The boys' club window is broken. And Disney will not commit to giving that product to show that support. Where's it at, Disney? Give us more, please. For my girl's sake. You're listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sci-Fi Podcast. We will be right back.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, we are back. And to cool off there a little bit. Sorry about that if it seemed a little abrasive there. It just, just gets me going here a little bit. Moving on to this, talking about, I usually like to get into a little bit of themes regarding some science fiction. Last week we talked a bit about time travel, which is really fun. I had a good time on that one. This week I want to focus on something that, again, in the science fiction world, there's supposed to be some kind of moral thing to be taught or ethical thing to be taught that is in the vein of that it's wrapped in this science-y type goodness. But it's really about humanity as it is right now, not about technology that doesn't exist or does exist but isn't advanced or taking place in a different time period. And on this week's show, I want to talk about cloning and how science fiction tells those types of stories, mostly regarding the question of what does it mean to play God?
Thank you.